All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Holiday Wellbeing, Mindfulness, Healthy Habits, and Behavioral Health Resources, hosted by the Detroit Regional Chamber in collaboration with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. My name is Cinziana Lucian, Senior Director of Healthcare Initiatives at the Chamber, and I'm going to share some information before we get started. Firstly, I would like to thank our longstanding partner, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, for their continued support of the Chamber. The Detroit Regional Chamber and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan have been working together for nearly 50 years. Blue Cross and the Chamber develop specific programs to help businesses create healthier workplaces and communities. One initiative that we collaborate around is called Wellness Works, a platform that provides complimentary health and well-being resources to employer and employees. Please visit wellnessworksdetroit.com for more information around this initiative. So we have a great presentation in store for you today around all things well-being to help you navigate the holiday season, which, believe it or not, is just around the corner. We are going to host a live Q&A session, so please submit questions for our speakers through the Q&A tab, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible before the end of the session. So please take advantage of this opportunity to connect with our speakers by submitting your questions during the presentations. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Sarah Linville, Manager, Chamber and Association Engagement for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, to kick off our program. Sarah, thank you for being with us today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cinziana. I will share my screen. And does that look okay for everyone?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cinziana, for the introduction this morning, and welcome everyone to our webinar today focused on holiday well-being. Before I turn things over to Cindy Bjorkquist from our team for what I am certain will be a very dynamic presentation regarding mindfulness and healthy habits, I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes going through some of the behavioral health resources that Blue Cross has available to our members, as well as some resources available even to those not enrolled in Blue Cross coverage to help them better manage the stresses of everyday life, as well as during the holiday season. So first, I just wanted to kick things off with a quick statistic this morning, one that I am certain will not be a surprise to anyone on the line today. According to the American Psychological Association, 38% of people say that their stress increases during the holiday season, leading to depression, anxiety, and often misusing substances. As I said, I doubt that this statistic is surprising to anyone. If anything, that number seemed a little bit low to me. But I just think it really speaks to, even though how the holiday season is super joyous at times, it can also lead to some additional stresses in our lives. Thankfully, however, Blue Cross does have a variety of resources to help individuals manage whatever types of concerns they're going through. So I'm not going to go through this slide in complete detail today. There is a lot of information there, but I did want to show this because it provides a comprehensive overview of the types of resources and care options that Blue Cross provides to individuals to help them address their behavioral health concerns. When you look at the first column, those are really more of your self-guided types of tools. Most of them are available online, and they're focused on supporting lifelong well-being. As you move further along in this document, you will see that we have a variety of care options, things like if individuals need to speak with a licensed therapist, we have a variety of care options there, as well as support and care options for individuals that may need support and resources to help with substance use disorders. In addition, you will see that Blue Cross offers a variety of in-person care options as well as virtual care options because we do find it important to meet the member where they are. In addition to that, we do have resources to help individuals more easily locate in-network mental health care providers. But as I said, I'm not going to go through this slide in significant detail, but what I do want to do is focus on that first column there, the column that now has some stars on it. The stars that are there signify the resources that are available to both Blue Cross members and non-members. And I do recognize that not everyone on the line today might have Blue Cross coverage, so I did want to call that out. And as I mentioned, these tools are really self-guided support tools. So when you might feel like you need a little bit of additional support, whether that's in your everyday life or during the holiday season, these resources are there for you. The first item that you see in that column is Blue Cross Virtual Wellbeing. Now, you will hear Cindy discuss this today. This is really her baby, and she is the star of the show there. But these webinars are free and open to the public. They're held on Tuesdays for employers, Thursdays for employees or members, and Wednesdays they have virtual meditation sessions. The webinars focus on a variety of health topics. It could be exercise, nutrition, or even the benefits of spending time in nature, which Cindy will also touch upon today. They are live, but they are also recorded for you to view them at your convenience. The next two items, My Blue Daily and ahealthiermichigan.org, are two public-facing websites that provide a variety of articles and blog posts on several different health and well-being topics. These two resources are not going to be mental health specific, but they do provide resources on that topic as well. For example, My Blue Daily has an article specific to tips to manage the stress of the holidays, but there are also preventive care information about conversations to have with your doctor, as well as resources just to help you better navigate the healthcare system and get the most out of your healthcare. The next item on here is the Blue Cross Behavioral Health website. This again is a public-facing website that provides and acts as a comprehensive resource for both mental health and substance use disorders. It provides information and support both from Blue Cross as well as other resources. The last two items in this column are specific for Blue Cross members. The first is our Blue Cross Wellbeing programs. We are switching from WebMD to Personify Health effective January 1, 2025. And within our wellbeing programs, there are free online tools and resources available to members to help them improve their overall health and well-being. I personally like our well-being tools because it allows members to set goals for themselves. So there are articles they can read and other types of resources, but I really like that goal setting feature. And then finally, we have our mental health self-guided support tool, which there is some additional details on the screen now. This is a tool powered by Teladoc Health, so it is available within the Teladoc Health app. It offers self-guided online tools, video modules, as well as engagement coaching for members to help them deal with some of the everyday stressors of life, such as anxiety and depression. On the screen, you will see some of the features included within this tool, but a couple that I specifically want to call out today are the skills for coping. Sometimes we struggle with how to deal with things that we're dealing with. There are tips and techniques within this tool to help you with those items. In addition, it mentions mindfulness, which Cindy will chat about today, but this is another tool that addresses mindfulness and provides some tips there. And then finally, my favorite feature of this tool is the progress tracking. This allows individuals to track their mental health, how they're feeling day in and day out, to hopefully better understand some of the things in their lives that are maybe triggering their stress or anxiety. This is free to members enrolled in fully insured health insurance plans. And again, it is part of the Teladoc Health app. And then finally, I did talk about this already, but I really just wanted to show on the screen here some of the types of articles that are posted to My Blue Daily. You will also see on the screen that they are normally pretty quick reads, 3 to 4 minutes that you can just read at your convenience. I really enjoy these articles. They're on a variety of topics. Again, just to help you better manage your health, but also better navigate the healthcare system and get the most out of your healthcare. If you have received the Wellness Works emails, like Cinziana mentioned, you've likely seen some of these My Blue Daily articles included in there. So please feel free to take a look at this website and see some of the resources we have out there. That is all that I had this morning. And so with that, I will turn it over to Cindy to go through the mindfulness and healthy habits of today's webinar.
Hey, hello everyone. Sarah, stay on because I just think this topic is so fun to interact with everybody. And it's so interesting because I just did one of the things I'm going to talk about today for mindfulness. I accidentally clicked something and my entire screen went away, and I immediately felt my heart rate go up a little bit and my hands got a little bit clammy, and I'm like, oh shoot, how am I going to talk? It just all disappeared. And so that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today. I use these things that we're going to talk about multiple times during the day. And so, in preparing for this, it was almost like, from my perspective, the things that you need to do to take care of your well-being during the holidays, it really isn't that different than what you need to do every single day of the year anyway, which I just did an example of me using a deep breath and going, just figure it out. You'll get it back on, don't get stressed out. So the things that we're going to talk about today, they're in addition to what I would always talk to somebody about their well-being. So Sarah, you're on. So Sarah and all the people that are on, me, a lot of people on, think about your well-being plan every single day. You get enough sleep, right? Sarah, you get enough sleep. You try to get enough sleep. That's important to you for your well-being. All right. You practice your self-care, right? You eat healthy the majority of the time. You drink enough water because hydration is really important. You get your physical activity minutes in. I could have included in the show gratitude, which I didn't. Watch your finances and stay connected to others. Those are just a rambling list of things that should be a part of your well-being plan for every day of the year. I think, from my perspective, the difference about the holidays and what they bring for this presentation, when Cynthiana said kind of focus it around the holidays, is that for some people, their level of stress is elevated during the holidays. And we could probably all shake our heads a little bit. According to the American Psychological Association, they say about 38% of people surveyed said their stress level increased during the holidays. And I would guess, because we're all different, that there are different reasons why that stress increases based on the people that were involved in the survey. But I would guess that one of the reasons is that we spend way more time with groups of people, right? Because when you spend time with groups of people, that's part of the holidays, which is great, but it also brings a level of elevated stress with it. Now, we know spending time with groups of people and that sense of connection is one of the most valuable activities for your overall well-being every single day of the year. Connecting and spending time with others. You've got to prioritize that. But if you add in the holiday expectations that you have for yourself, which some of us have really high expectations, kind of like a toxic positivity sometimes, and you have others that have expectations of you, either real or in your head, it can be overwhelming for some people. So I picked 3 themes to focus on today with the short time that we have. One is going to be that you need to identify your mindfulness technique. Now, I said when my entire screen went away because I accidentally clicked something, I took a deep breath. That's the easiest thing for mindfulness. There's a lot of different mindfulness things that you can do, but just taking a deep breath, but you got to focus on, you got to identify what you can use. And we're going to talk about that. The next one is seeking nature and what that can do for your well-being. And we're going to fall in love with snow in that side of the talk. And then the other one is that eat mindfully, right? Okay, so let's get going. All right, so change slides, please. I would think that you're all familiar with what what this means. Like, this lady is, she probably has people coming over. You can probably tell a story if you were writing out a narrative of what she's feeling. So when I say mindfulness, and you have to think about what does mindfulness even mean? I would think the majority of you know what mindfulness means because it's been around the industry for a very long time. But let me remind you that mindfulness just means being present in the moment and being aware of what your body and your brain is telling you. So when all of my stuff disappeared just now, I'm mindfully resilient to stress, I would hope, because of my training, but I'm mindfully aware that my heart rate increased a little bit and my palms got a little sweaty. That's what mindfulness is. You're very in tune with what's happening to your body in a certain situation. Many people use mindfulness techniques to center themselves, maybe before you go into a meeting, or before you go into the holidays, or before you cook a big dinner, or to calm themselves at times of stress, which is what I just did. The the fascinating thing about mindfulness is that if you don't know, research tells us that you can reverse your body starting to amp up the stress level just with a deep breath. And that's amazing to think a slow, deep breath, which is called a sigh breath, could reverse your body's reaction to whatever stress you're going into or to calm you down in a proactive way. Now, my question is, let's go back to the picture. Is this familiar to anyone? Sarah, do you identify with this at all? Or are you just one of those awesome people that are opposite of me that never get stressed out and you roll through life and you just go with the punches?
If only that were the case, Cindy. Absolutely
Okay.
not. I absolutely identify with this.
Okay. So I want people to think about that, right? Because I know people in my life that are completely calm all the time. They are blessed with that personality of being a low reactor, and that's great for them. But that's not me. So I would identify with a woman in the picture if I didn't have mindfulness, right? Because I would engage in mindfulness. But let's pretend you have a big gathering of people coming over, you're trying to please everybody, you know. So on top of that, think about during the holidays, the one thing that kind of makes me think that mindfulness is so important for us is that you might have people that you only see a couple times a year, maybe family, maybe friends, maybe extended family, and you're anticipating some of the conversations that might happen in that gathering, and that causes you stress even before your body even gets to that stressful state. So that's where the proactiveness comes into this as well. But you could get overwhelmed very easily. The crazy thing to me, which is fascinating as an exercise physiologist who has studied the body my whole life, your emotional state affects your physical state, right? And to a larger degree, there's another component of this that some people don't know about, which is how you're wired. You're wired for this based on your learning behaviors and your coping mechanisms that you've learned your entire life. Think of your parents. Think of your siblings, think of your friends, your family, your environment. Those all have an impact on how you're wired to react to stress or not. And this affects how we respond. So I'm saying some keywords that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but how we respond to stress, our brain is wired in that way. So look at, you might even see this flashing around while I'm talking. This is a stress ring. And I use these when I talk all the time because I'm a high reactor. So for me, feeling this stress ring and being able to roll it down here when you can't see it, that's one of the coping mechanisms that I have for being a high reactor with the high expectations of doing this talk. So I saw that in the cameras. I thought you might want to know what that is. Anyway, so because this affects how we respond during the holidays, the theme number one is I want you to identify your mindfulness technique. What would you use in this scenario, or what do you use today? Because you have to have it. Some of you have heard me maybe talk before in keynotes, and I say find your thing, find your mindfulness thing that you turn to. Can't tell you what it should be, but there's a lot of them out there. Taking a deep breath, going for a mindful walk, petting a dog or cat, huge mindfulness technique that you can use. Practice self-talk. There's even a body of evidence. Michigan State University and U of M, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, did this research study where if you name your emotions when you're stressed out, you can actually curtail that reaction. So in this situation, if that's maybe, let's say that's her husband in the backyard, in the background, and she's getting ready for this bunch of people coming over, she's got a headache because she's stressed out. If she verbally says to herself out loud, I know I'm getting stressed, but I'm going to be okay. The verbalization they found out of doing that calms your brain down from the stress. It's called naming your reaction. And what happens is when you name an emotion from a reaction, your body puts a temporary phase on it. Like, we're going to get over this. You're going to be okay. Different parts of your brain talk to each other, and it actually calms down the amygdala, which we're going to talk about in a minute as well. So all this stuff is really fascinating to me, but you have to think, what is your go-to mindfulness technique? Now switch slides. This is why I'm passionate about this topic, because this is actually me. And I've already told you that I'm a high reactor from the day I was born. I have been high energy, super passionate, talk like the speed of light. My brain never shuts off. So for me, this is critical for my well-being every single day of my life. But then also when the holidays piles on that additional stress a little bit. Because I'm such a high reactor, I do things like this, or I meditate, or I breathe a lot before meetings. Those are things that I have in my toolbox that I can use to center myself to be a lower reactor in a stressful situation. So ask yourself, are you a high reactor or are you a low reactor? And what is your go-to mindfulness activity that you use on a daily basis to be proactive, to calm your brain, calm your body senses, center yourself, and then at times of stress, that's your go-to thing. All right. All right, so the next one. So what I wanted to do is give you some ideas that you may not know about outside of just going for a walk or taking a breath and stuff like that. Silence. Wasn't sure if you all knew about the amount of research behind silence, but it's fascinating. I was introduced to silence, I don't know, about 15 years ago, I'd say. No, 17, I started at Blue Cross. I'd say 20 years ago. This idea that there's a lot of body of research globally that points to the power of silence and what it can bring to your life every single day, but then also during the holidays and all year round. People who practice silence in their life, and you only need 5 minutes according to research to be able to get these benefits. People that practice silence, they're more resilient to stress. Now, what does that mean? That's another buzzword in our industry. Resilience is when I'm faced with stress, like all my stuff going away, 2 seconds before I turn my camera on, I take a deep breath, which is my go-to thing. I can't go for a walk right now. Took a deep breath. I'm resilient to my body getting amped up in stress, right? I can bring my body back down. I'm aware of what's going on and I can bring my body down. I'm resilient to my body's reactions of the stress. Holiday season, my gosh, something that we could all use, right? The research is centered around the minimum of 5 minutes of silence. And what does that mean? It just means 5 minutes of silence. Try to tune out road noise. I can get pretty silent in my office if I have to. Practicing this controls what's called the amygdala response. Now, you have two amygdala in your brain. They're about here, deep center in your brain. That controls your fight or flight. So when all of my stuff went away, my amygdala fired because it was saying, oh my gosh, we're in a stressful state. Those amygdala are firing. Because I'm a resilient person, because I took that deep breath and I've been training my body to come down from stress, the amygdala can't control me because there's an amygdala hijack that we're going to talk about in a minute. But those amygdala in your brain help you when you're perceiving danger or a threat. But for me, when I'm giving a talk to a bunch of people and there's a high expectation because Cynthiana's like, oh, this is going to be fun. And Sarah's like, oh, Cindy's going to do a good job. High expectations, I feel that makes me even more amped up. So my amygdala are sitting on the edge right now. My screen goes away. Those amygdala are firing, going, oh, danger, danger, danger. I can control that amygdala. And that's what I want to teach you guys. You can control that stress response with deep breathing, going for a walk, twirling something on your finger, a lot of different things. So think about the scenario of holiday stress coming up, the ability to control that amygdala with conflict, or you're in a traffic jam, or you're in a big gathering and there's just a stressful situation, whatever it is, or you're feeling just stressed out because you've overbooked yourself. That's what you can do with that amygdala control, which is mindfulness, right? It's not too hard to practice it. Just get yourself into silence. It's super uncomfortable if you've never done it before. Here's my tip to you, high reactors out there that go and don't shut your mind off and you keep going. Get yourself one of these. I have one of these and I turn it over and then I'm silent for the entire time that the sand is going down in here. It forces me to be silent for a 1, 2, or a 3 minute amount of time if you have trouble getting silent, because sometimes the bombarding of the stimuli in your brain when you're trying to be silent is super hard to overcome, but you get better at it as you do it. And there's additional things I added on the slide for you all about promoting new neuron growth in your brain, stimulates the growth of neurons at a faster rate. This thing about silence is amazing. So I would highly recommend that you practice this. But for me, the biggest one is in that regulation of your emotions. You get to the point where you can calm yourself down and regulate. Okay, next slide. So this is just Sammy, the little mouse, and he was a part of a study that I wanted to throw in there for you all. Everything that I say is based on research, and I just love this particular study. In 2013, they found that 2 hours of silence, which I've never done before, 2 hours of silence per day help mice develop new cells in their hippocampus. That's associated with memory, right? So remembering names of people or your holiday list, emotion, not overreacting. We talked about that a lot in stressful situations, and then learning as well. So consider silence as one of your techniques. You only have to do 5 minutes. You don't need to do 2 hours, but if you can do 2 hours, that's great. Okay, next little theme here is around again, if you've seen me talk, the bear in the woods is one of my favorite themes to talk to people about. This is a mindfulness technique that I think every single individual should know about, especially during the holidays, about responding. I talked about that in the beginning, not reacting. So what does that mean? Resilient people who practice mindfulness, just taking a deep breath, let's just use that as an example. You respond and not react to people. Responding is when you analyze a situation and think through it logically, and you use your left prefrontal cortex. So think about this. In your brain, those amygdala that fire in a stressful situation and cause you to overreact, those are monitored by the left prefrontal cortex in your brain. It's called executive function, but that thing talks to your amygdala all the time. So when you're in a stressful conversation with somebody and you're feeling stressed and your amygdala starts to fire over the edge a little bit and you start to heart rate a little bit, palms get sweaty, you're starting to worry, starting to feel threatened, this prefrontal cortex in the front, if you can train that thing with mindfulness to bring you down, it talks to the amygdala and it says basically high level this: Cindy, not that bad. You're going to be okay. Take a deep breath. This actually has a conversation gray matter for those amygdala and calms and tampers that amygdala down. So you don't have what's called an amygdala hijack, where those amygdalas just go, woo, you're in stress. You're, threaten. And then you say something that you shouldn't say. That's respond versus react. You train yourself to respond to a situation or people. You don't react and say something out of character that you have to take back later. This with a group of people during the holidays is super important, teaching yourself to respond, not to react. Kind of like the bear in the woods, right? You don't want to react like there's a bear in the woods. Now, next slide. So apply this to the holidays. From my perspective, during the holidays, the bear, the threat, could be anything that causes you fear or anger. And I'm not supporting choking somebody like the picture, but I thought the picture made me laugh. But it's about anything that happens to you where you feel fearful or anger because you're already amped up because of the holidays. It's super easy to be reactive and then just become overwhelmed and you react and say something that you shouldn't, or you do something that you shouldn't, or you just get in this high stress state and you stay there. And we all know that's chronically, stress is not good for your body or your brain. So you don't want to stay in that stressed out state. So this is another kind of skill set of responding, not reacting, that you can learn if you implement that mindfulness technique that we talked about, and you don't have what's called that hijack, where that amygdala fires and you just stay in the stress state during the entire time you're with other people or you're shopping or whatever, or you say something that you should not say. Okay, next one. So then you're like, Cindy, okay, that sounds like a good thing to know. Like, what do I do? There's two ways of looking at this. One is preventing the amygdala from hijacking your emotions, and that's recognizing the symptoms. Heart rate goes up a little bit, blood pressure goes up, you kind of feel a little clammy. You're very in tune with your body, right? Using that mindful breathing to interrupt the amygdala signal. Like, I actually think about that. I actually took a deep breath and in stressful situations, and I actually say, amygdala, like, you're not going to be taking me over, in my head. Or if you verbally say it out loud, according to U of M and MSU, it's even better. But you control your responses. And then that whole naming the emotions, and that what that does is there's actually a pathway, you guys, through to the amygdala, to the left prefrontal cortex. There's gray matter, and if you meditate or you use mindfulness a lot, they actually have scans that show in your brain that gray matter enhances. You have more gray matter. It's fascinating research. So naming your emotions is something that's super important. That's all in the moment, but preventive. identify, this is an interesting study that's been replicated many, many times. You identify your core set of friends. In well-being, they tell us between, 3 and 5 people that got your back at 3 a.m. Sarah, do you have 3 or 5 people that got your back? You can call them at 3 a.m.
Absolutely.
That's your core set of friends, right? It's called social buffering, which means when you get in a stressful situation, you call that friend, you can actually calm that amygdala down by having those conversations with those very close friends. And then practicing mindfulness as well. We all know that. All right. So hope you learned something from that, preventing the amygdala and doing that. Okay, next slide. So
Cindy, before we move on, just quick question regarding the 5 minutes of silence. Now, what does that look like for somebody? Do they need to be in a dark room? Do they have to have their eyes closed? Or can I just sit here and in my desk at home and just relax for 5 minutes? What does that look like?
So the research is centered around complete silence. And so I can't get complete silence because I have road noise a little bit. I can hear a little bit right now. So some people will actually do canceling headphones. They'll actually use canceling headphones on it. I don't do that. I can get complete silence in my basement because I don't hear the road noise. And what I do is I lay down on a yoga mat and I shut the lights off and I have darkness. You don't have to do that though. I mean, in other parts of the world where people actually use silence, they could walk out to the end of a dock on a lake, which you're still going to hear some sounds a little bit and just have silence from your environment around you, but you're still hearing nature sounds. But the majority of the research is complete silence, which is hard to get to, but you can, with mindfulness, and especially if you meditate, Sarah, you're able to block out noise. Like when I'm on my bike sometimes and I'm in the woods and you hear birds and stuff like that, I can get so meditative riding in the woods that I will not hear the birds anymore. So you can get meditative into a meditative state where you block everything out.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
All right. So the next slide, since Deanna and Sarah mentioned Blue Cross Virtual Wellbeing, I host that. I've been doing it for about 6 years. Every single week we talk about something. So I want to make sure that the concepts that I talk about today, you actually can see a blown out 30-minute research overview of it. So this happens to be meditations, and Sarah talked about meditations. Every single week we do it. If you're not a mindfulness guru and you really want to start doing mindfulness or meditations, every single Wednesday, we give you one live and on demand. Okay, next one. All right, so holiday mindfulness summary a little bit. Know your triggers. These could be people or situations. If you know your triggers, you know that you're going to start implementing to that mindfulness technique. Have reasonable expectations for yourself and others. There's lots of articles on this, lots of podcasts on this. You don't have to have the perfectly cleaned house and don't stress out about things like that, but have reasonable expectations for you. Don't overbook yourself, right? Develop a flexible mindset.
The Q&A function is.
So develop a flexible mindset during the holidays. You've got a bunch of people together, a bunch of people that are trying to get you to do different stuff. Be flexible, be open to change. That's the best way you can get around stress. And then identify your goal. We talked about that. Identify what mindfulness technique that you want to implement, right? You got it. Which one are you going to go to? And then practice it, because practice makes perfect, and you'll be able to use it throughout the year as well. Okay. The next slide, just the whole idea of respond, not react. I've got a complete 30-minute show on that, so I wanted to show you that as well, and a QR code to go to that and listen to me talk for a half hour. Okay, so theme number 2, seek nature for your well-being. Talked about that a little bit. I'm a huge nature nut. I've got a tree there. The majority of the pictures behind me are me in nature. There's so much information on nature connection. My doctor, who just retired, used to write scripts for people and their kids to spend time in nature, which I thought was amazing. Doctors and physicians around the world write scripts. They meet their patients in nature, have counseling. There's overwhelming research on being in nature. One of my mindfulness techniques, it doesn't mean you have to, but one of my mindfulness techniques that I use during the winter is to get on my fat tire bike and get in the woods. There are trails that get groomed, and me in the woods on my fat tire bike, I can get in this meditative state of watching the sun go through the trees and the snow. The most calmest I've been in my entire life. You got to find what works with you, but try to expose yourself to nature. So my question to you for this theme is, snow's coming. We think in Michigan, I don't know, maybe we won't get any this year, but the minute I say that, we're going to get dumped on. But do you like being out in the snow in nature in the winter? Because if you don't, you can change your mind. Go to the next slide. Because I do know a person who shall not be named, who is pictured there with their dog Louie, who used to tell me that they hated nature, and not hated, maybe that's too strong. She didn't like snow, she didn't like the cold, wah, 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 Cincinnati, not naming names. But then, we started talking about things a little bit, and I think I got her over the curb a little bit about go expose yourself, go outside, just go for a walk in the trees in the snow, please, Cincinnati. Then she got a dog, Louie, and now Louie requires her to go for those multiple walks. And I love that because I think if you were to ask Cincinnati today about nature and in nature exposure during the winter time and in the snow in Michigan, she might have maybe a tad bit of a different viewpoint of it because once she started doing it and she felt what that does to your body and your brain, it is amazing. So get out as much as you can, but look at the research on this nature. It's crazy, the exposure in nature. One of my most favorite things that I've ever done is I did forest bathing with it was a virtual class out of the Smithsonian Institute. And they basically had you walk in your neighborhood because you were listening virtually, walking in your neighborhood, and you would walk up to a tree and you would look at the tree and you would really look at the tree. It sounds weird, but go do it this afternoon. Walk up to a tree, look at the bark, look at the amazing lines in the bark. Think about that tree coming from a seed. It's crazy cool. Take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out, look at the leaves on the ground. They had us lay on our stomach and look at a blade of grass. It was, this idea of forest bathing. The Japanese actually have forests that you can go into and absorb yourself in nature. And they've done a ton of studies on this as well, stimulating the production of anti-cancer proteins. I kind of threw a couple on there, reduced bowel disorders and heart conditions and nervous system optimization, tons and tons of stuff. If you don't believe me, go for a walk this weekend or this afternoon in a bunch of trees and just absorb yourself and breathe in. That's called forest bathing. It's amazing. Other things that spending time in nature will help you with: emotional regulation. We just talked about that. They've got a lot of science around controlling the amygdala and being in the trees and calming you down, which is why that's my go-to on my fat tire bike. If I have a stressful week, I tell my staff I'm out, take a PTO day on Friday, I'm in the woods in the snow on my bike. Helps me immensely with that emotion regulation. Mood, improves your mood, attention and focus. They found studies about improving sleep because you get exposed to early morning sun exposure if you do it in the morning. Like I go for a walk. I try to go for a walk every early morning when the sun comes up to get the sun exposure. Tons of stuff on that with circadian rhythm alteration. So there's just a ton of stuff. Now you might say, Cindy, how many minutes do I need? Well, the research kind of sits in the pocket of 120 minutes per week, right? They don't tell you how much per day, but 120 minutes per week. You want to kind of distribute it throughout the week, but you kind of try to expose yourself to a major. It could be just walking out after dinner, walking around your neighborhood looking at trees, or it could be walking out your back door on lunch or outside your office and find a tree and go for a walk and just absorb yourself in the beauty of the trees. But this 120 minutes seems to be where the research is all pointing. And then I put on there boost immune function as well. Obviously, because there's a lot of science on digging in the dirt, microorganisms and breathing in the nature and stuff like that. So that's all out there as well. But it's fascinating stuff. So ask yourself, when's the last time you exposed yourself to nature? And maybe you should try this during the holiday season with you and your family. Like tradition in my family, after Thanksgiving, we all go for a walk after dinner because we know we have glucose intolerance problems in our family history. So that's important because there's research on that as well. So a lot of things you can do on that. Flip the slide. We have upcoming webinar because this virtual wellbeing webinars. So I wanted to make sure that you knew on December 5th, and the third is the employer one, the 5th is the member one. They're all open to the public. We have a Winter Fitness Fun show coming up, which is kind of like a contest, a competition for yourself. So you can actually go to that if you're interested as well. Okay.
And just because I don't think we've mentioned this yet, These links to the virtual wellbeing webinars, the QR codes, will be shared with all attendees post today's webinar. So if you don't get a chance to scan them now, totally okay.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so my advice wrapping up the winter, being outside in winter, is get yourself, if you're out during hunting season, and yes, this looks like a geeky thing to do, but I have one of these hats because if I'm in the woods and it has a little flap down thing, so if I'm on my bike in the woods, I don't want to get shot. So I do have one of these hats. And then also, get yourself a good flashlight, right? Because if it's going to be dark out, you're going to want to do the flashlight. I walked to my son's house last night in the dark to give him a new spatula, a PABA-free spatula that wasn't black, because there's some research on that toxic stuff. So I walked to his house. So I had my flashlight in my hand. It was dark. He's about 2 miles away. So it's a 4-mile walk in the dark. And then if I bike, I've got these lights as well. So get yourself to be safe in the wintertime, but get outside. Okay. The third theme is eating mindfully. This is going to sound weird, but there's this idea that holidays bring food and food and food and food, right? And so you're going to indulge. That's totally fine. But what does it mean to eat mindfully? It means that if I'm eating an apple or anything, you could eat it not mindfully, which just means you eat the apple, or you could be mindful when you eat the apple. It means that you use your senses. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but it's kind of cool. You use your senses when you're eating. So you grab the apple and it feels hard, right? So I'm feeling it. You look at it, it's beautiful, red, organic. I don't know what kind I think it's golden delicious. I don't know which kind it is. Honey Crisp, I think. Anyway, so I'm looking at it, right? I crunch into it. So the sound of the crunch. Then when I'm eating it, I actually taste it and I use my taste buds and my senses to taste it. Eating mindfully is not only thinking about what you're going to consume during your holiday feast or during the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah and all the different holidays. What are you going to consume? What are you going to be exposed to? Because your environment's going to expose you to stuff that you might want not to gorge and eat. But it's also about why are you eating? So why don't you flip slides? Because I tried to put as best as I could on this slide about eating mindfully, the things that you want to start to consider. And if you've never done this, do something fun with your family and your friends where you take like a raisin and you eat it mindfully, which means you put a raisin, you look at it first and all that kind of stuff, put it in your mouth. And I'm not sure if you all know that you're supposed to chew your food like 30 times. The research kind of sits around 32 before swallowing. And it does that for a reason, because when you chew a lot, you have saliva, right? And this saliva actually helps with gastric juices and helps you digestion, and it breaks down your food. It also starts peristalsis in your body. So this idea of chewing your food to help your GI tract is super important, which is why you want to slow down when you eat. That's part of eating mindfully, is slowing down. Because you chew more, but then and break all that food up so it helps your GI tract, but then also because it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to signal your brain that you're full. So if you're eating super fast, you could overeat and your brain is like, oh, I'm catching up. You were full, 10 minutes ago. So this whole idea of eating mindfully also is in the duration as well. And you want to use your senses when you're eating, which I talked about. Turn off the TV or minimal distractions and really appreciate and be grateful for the food that you have in front of you. That's part of being present when you're eating, which is part of eating mindfully. The other concept on bullet number 2 is avoid emotional eating. And so emotional eating, is where I'm eating because I'm bored, or ask yourself the question, am I eating because I'm bored, or I'm eating because I'm super stressed and I'm just eating, or am I eating because I'm super sad, or am I eating because I'm angry at somebody, or am I tending to buy junk food or eat more food that I shouldn't be eating because I'm in a state where, and this sounds weird, but there's research around this, that I want to get back at somebody. Like I'm really ticked at somebody. And so you actually eat unhealthy, almost like you're punishing yourself. It's a fascinating world of eating mindfully out there. If you've never tried it, and then try it. The other thing is that you want to pay attention to food cues. We know if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. You can't trust your thirst mechanism at all, but you can trust your food mechanism. So when's the last time you were actually hungry? We eat sometimes mathematically every, a certain amount of hours or whatever, but it's kind of cool to feel hungry sometimes. And so listen to your hunger cues as well. And then consider if you're getting tripped up during the holidays with eating mindfully or eating too much or eating the wrong foods, journal it. Because Sarah, I don't know if you've ever done a food journal, but when I do a food journal, because I food journal everything every day, but if you have to write down, like you're really eating crappy food, it's really hard to do that because I'm like, oh, but I did, you write it down. So maybe think about that, because if you eat like, 5 candy bars in a day, or, you got, a whole pie and you ate, 3 of them, you have to log it. And so that might help you, this idea of journaling. And journaling your water will help you get enough water in, which helps eating mindfully, because sometimes you're thirsty, you're not actually hungry. So that'll help you get your water in, which is so important as well. And then be aware of your environment. If you're going to a party, then bring your own food if you don't think that they're going to have healthy food there. You can indulge. I'm not saying don't eat stuff, but if you want a certain type of food for what a medical reason, or you just want a certain type of food, then offer to bring it, and that might be your dish to pass, because you know that that's something that you might want to bring to the thing. And then take a deep, full, mindful, deep breath before eating. That's part of slowing down, and that's part of appreciating, being grateful for your food. Lots of information on there about eating mindfully, but the takeaway from here is it might help you during the holiday season. And if you've never done it before, take a raisin tonight at dinner, put it in your mouth, and with your family or your friends around you, and eat a raisin super slowly and mindfully, and it'll kind of open up you to this idea of eating mindfully. All right. And then the last slide on this, second to last slide, this is the hosting Blue Cross Virtual Wellbeing. If you've never, if you're interested in this, it's just a 30-minute quick chat every single week about a different wellbeing topic. It's super fun. It's super viral. We've got 76 countries right now that watch us, and we're global. So we have a lot of global topics. And so some of the stuff in the research that I talk about on the show, which I talked about here today, is actually from other parts of the world, which is kind of cool to expose you to things that you can help your well-being out with. And then the last one on slide 18, or this slide, is slaying the holidays. This is a holiday challenge that we put together. It's beautiful. I've got someone on my staff, Marissa, who does these challenges and works with graphics. And if you're looking for a challenge for yourself, or you want to do a challenge with your family and friends, or at the work site, this idea of slaying the holidays with well-being components is beautiful and a lot of fun. And we hope that people enjoy that. That's on November 19th. That's just an employer webinar. We're rolling that out to employers. We usually have a topic on a Tuesday for employers and a Thursday for the general public, but they're both open to the public. So if people can't come Thursday, they'll come Tuesday, vice versa. But this one is only on a Tuesday, but everyone is welcome. Okay, so those are the 3 themes that I could think of for the holiday well-being in the fastest way that I could do it, that hopefully made sense. And I'm wishing you all a happy holidays, and I hope that you learned something today.
Well, thank you, Cindy and Sarah, for these amazing strategies and resources. I think we all learned something. It's always a pleasure being on a webinar with both of you, because I know that there's a wealth of information that's going to be shared. So we're going to get into the portion of our Q&A. I do want to remind people, please submit your Q&A questions through the Q&A portal at the top of your screen. So you still have time to do that. I did want to comment on, the story that you shared about Louie and I.
You have to talk about Louie.
So, when Cindy and I have known each other for a long time, so when she texted me and asked, "Do you have a picture with you and your dog doing a winter activity?" I was like, "Oh, I know where this is going."
Yeah.
So, but no, I do appreciate you sharing that story, because it is very true. I am a person that really feels those winter blues, and I just don't like being cold. So, I do tend to sit inside a lot during the winter, and, kind of want to avoid, being out in the cold or the snow or whatever it is. So, not encouraging people to get pets to help with the winter blues, but it does help. So maybe I should encourage people to get pets. But
Yeah.
I think it does help having a little furry companion, to obviously, take around for a walk, kind of force you to get out there. I love the scarf, Cindy. But also
I love what somebody just said. It's all about the layers. And I was going to
it
strategically
is.
put my MSU scarf on here for all of the U of M people on the show.
So really what I wanted to say is one strategy that has worked for me is really bundling up because, I feel like if I'm really warm, even though I have many
Yes.
layers on, a puffy coat, like the long boots, it does help me, be more comfortable outside in the cold and not really feel, like I'm freezing the whole time.
Yeah.
So I do get outside now. I know Cindy and I have talked about this, obviously with my dog, and as well as just to kind of get out and feel the benefits of being outdoors. So thanks
I
for
think
sharing
that,
this
but
story.
Cynthiana, I think that person is right on tap. As I strategically put my Sparty here, that it is about layers, right? It is
Yes.
about layers because so if you're not a winter person, I've always been a winter exerciser, so layers is just second nature. But you may not know this, that it's important what layers you wear as well. Close to your body, you don't want carton. Yeah, go green, go white. Close to your body, you don't want cotton, so you want smart wool, or you want, so think about that. And actually, I have a show coming up on just socks. It's important, like just the socks that you wear. So in January, I don't remember the date, but we're going to do a show just on what socks you should wear for hiking and walking and stuff like that in the wintertime. And you would be amazed at the socks make such a big difference as well. And so be careful when you're out there. I
Sure.
have cleats that I wear. I have both yak tracks, which are coils, and then I have actually ice cleats that I wear on the sidewalks if it gets really icy. So be careful. Have your light, good footing, good layers and stuff like that. But if you're not a winter person, yeah, get outside because you will fall in love with the snow,
Bundle up
especially
and get outside. Yes.
in a sunny day. In a sunny day, when you look up in the trees and the snow is sparkling through, it's amazing. Yeah.
Love it. All right. So, Sarah and Cindy, you both shared these helpful well-being strategies and resources for individuals. But let's switch lenses to an employer perspective. So,
Okay.
what can employers and leaders do to, help their team members, their employees, navigate the holiday stressors? Cindy, you want to kick it off?
Okay, sure. So from my perspective, that's why I do a show every Tuesday because I want to give employers the information, not only just challenges, but expose employers to all these different things that they can take back. It's free. We give you content, we give you presentations. I do all the research globally for you. Employers rule really a lot of the time that employees have during their day. That's why there's that work. I've been doing this for over 40 some years. Workside wellness came about because the recognition is that we spend so much time, maybe not in a building or, maybe it's virtual now, but under the auspice of working if you're a working individual. So you control so much of that. Exposing your employees to the concepts of mindfulness, spending time in nature, getting your physical activity in, healthy eating, all the things that we do in virtual well-being. Not saying you have to watch it, but I give it all to you. I do all the research. That constant talking about mental health, physical health, behavioral health, suicide awareness. I mean, there's just every single topic. You are in a gold mine position to help people on their well-being. And I think the other thing from my perspective is it's not a one size fits all. I can't tell you what strategy to use because of your industry or your employees. And even within industries, there are people that are different because we're all on our own well-being journey. So I really mean it when I say I can't tell you what to do for mindfulness. The things that I do may not work for Sarah or Cynthiana. You expose them to all the things, and then they get to choose what works for them. Because I forgot to show you this pillow. Did you guys see these pillows? This is a pillow
Yeah.
that I gave every single family member. It's a stress pillow. And what you do is when you start to get anxious or overwhelmed, whatever, you dig your hands inside these pillows, and it very is calming. But so I gave one of these to each one of my family members for Christmas last year, and they're like, "Mom, what is, Aunt, what is this?" Well, it's a stress pillow. So it's the same thing. You as an employer, you're exposing people to different things that they may or may not want to use. I think that's your role because you impact so much of their well-being.
I love
And
that. Thanks.
I'm happy to add a little bit of context here as well regarding the behavioral health resources. So as I mentioned, we will send some follow-up resources to individuals, but Blue Cross does provide to our group customers, so employers, some easy to use toolkits to help promote to their members the various behavioral health and mental health resources that Blue Cross has available. I did actually just put in the chat the link to our behavioral health resource toolkit. And Cindy, I also just linked the flyer to Blue Cross Virtual Wellbeing as well. So employers, if you can, definitely educate your members about the resources that Blue Cross has available.
Yeah, and Blue Cross Virtual Wellbeing is open to the public, so you don't have to be Blue to participate. So you can send it. If you are Blue, great, and then you can send it to your family and friends who aren't Blue, which is also great as well. So you can all have that conversation about that topic. Okay.
I love that. So I think what I'm hearing is communication. Communicate with your employees, send these resources, provide support. All of those are great insights.
Yeah, let them know you care, right?
Right.
Let them know you care. Right.
Especially around a time that is very high burnout time. So I love
Right.
that. Okay, so we do have a question from an attendee, and it's about one of your strategies. I know that you talked about sitting in silence. So this individual asked, what is the difference between 5 minutes of silence and sitting quiet or quietly napping?
Oh,
or sitting quietly and napping.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Yes.
I did.
So what is the
Yeah,
difference
I did
between
it.
sitting in silence for 5 minutes or just,
And then napping.
kind of
Yeah.
napping? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did a show on napping because there is evidence on napping, and I kind of didn't want to do it because I'm like, we're not gonna do a show on napping and telling a bunch of people to nap during the day, but we did because there's overwhelming science on napping. But silence is you being able to control yourself. That's different. I'm consciously voiding things out of my brain, blocking things out. I'm sitting in silence. I'm trying to control the senses. You have to be able to, it's a practice for a reason. You're practicing, you're working at it. That's different than just taking a nap. There are benefits of taking the nap that are very similar to sitting in silence, but when you nap, the time variable is a little bit different too. The napping, I think the time variable from the show was no more than 20 minutes. And then you start to reverse some of that. You start to get groggy and screw up your circadian rhythm and stuff. So the silence is that minimum of 5 minutes, but it could be up to the 2 hours. Napping's a little bit different in time, similar effects, but that's why silence is so hard. Napping can be easy to people. You just fall asleep for some people, but silence, you have to deal with your brain. You have to control your brain, deal with the constant stimuli coming in your brain. It's a practice and it's hard to do for a lot of people, and you try to get better at it each time you do it, but it's vastly different.
Nicely said. That's great. Thank you, Cindy. So I know we could probably continue this conversation for another half hour to an hour, but unfortunately we are coming up to time. So I do want to, give each of you a chance to kind of leave our audience with one key takeaway, on how to navigate stressors during the holidays and beyond. So Sarah, do you want to kick it off?
Sure, absolutely. I'm sure Cindy will close it out in a much more exciting manner. So, no, I just want to mention that all of the resources that I mentioned today, especially for Blue Cross members, are available on the member portal and our mobile app. So if you're looking for in-network mental health care providers, just trying to see the resources that are available to you, please download the Blue Cross app so that you have access to those resources. But thank you so much today, Cindy.
Yeah, I'll just close it out saying make it a priority, right? I think I can talk till I'm blue in the face for 4 hours to everyone, but if they don't make it a priority to do their self-care, get their sleep, drink their water, practice mindfulness, nature exposure, all the stuff that you need to do, then it's not going to work. So you need to be the best person that you can be for yourself so you can give to others. And you can't do that if you don't take care of yourself. So I'm pleading with you to make yourself a priority for the holiday season.
Well, thank you, Cindy and Sarah, and thank you for providing this amazing information today. Thanks to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan for supporting our program, and we hope to see you next time, and happy holidays.
Have a great one, everyone.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a good one. Bye-bye.